Hi guys, I'm back. Got me coffee. Actually, I'm just going to warm me coffee up. So I thought I'd learn about Elvis's army years, and obviously I've made a lot of videos with Elvis. He signs up for the draft, and then very unexpectedly, at the height of his career, after making a couple of films, I think, he gets sort of called in, drafted, which was like a volcano eruption had happened. It was during quite a difficult time in Elvis's life because there was a lot of outrage against Elvis, who thought he was a delinquent and was causing the teenagers to be very naughty. So I think part of the decision was taken that he should serve his military service and do it just like the rest of the guys that were joining, and then come out with a new image. The older generation and the families, which is actually what happened. He came out of the army and reinvented himself with GI Blues and different style albums, and the Frank Sinatra special, the Coming Home of Elvis special with Frank Sinatra. And we know that Nancy Sinatra met Elvis as he was leaving Germany. Let me just get my coffee. And I thought, I know you guys have seen all the footage of Elvis through his army years. Obviously, the traumatic thing that happened where he lost his mother whilst doing basic training. Elvis actually found basic training quite easy. I've seen him say it in interviews. I just thought, let's just read about the army stuff together, so we can both learn. So I'm going to Google, and I'm just typing it in. I'm just going to see what happens. Right. So a bit of coffee. American singer and actor Elvis Presley served in the United States Army from 1958 to 1960 after being drafted to serve in military service. As an active duty soldier for 2 years, at the time of his enlistment, he was widely regarded as the most well-known name in the world of entertainment. Well, he still is, I would say. But yes, and just obviously a very famous picture of him. Let me just show you guys with his tanks. And as he says in one of his interviews, isn't it something like he's questioned about the army, and he says something like, I was in tanks. They rock and roll a lot. Is that what he said? You tell me. With a smirk on his face. So he did get to the rank of sergeant, and his unit was Company 1st Medium Tank Battalion, 32nd Armor, 3rd Armored Division. And the awards that he got were Good Conduct Medal, a National Defense Service Medal. Right, there's a bit here saying memorials. Elvis Presley Circle, Friedberg, Elvis Presley Memorial, Bad Neumann, so Bad Nauheim. Does that ring a bell? Elvis Presley Memorial, Obermoreland, and Elvis Presley Memorial in Schlitz. Before entering the army, Presley caused a national outrage with his rock and roll music. Many parents, religious leaders, and teachers groups welcomed his draft into the military. Despite being offered the chance to enlist in the special services, to entertain the troops, and live in priority housing, Presley was persuaded by his manager to serve as a regular soldier. This earned him the respect of many of his fellow soldiers and people back in the United States who previously viewed him in a negative light. Well, that's true. That's clear. You go on YouTube And there's many things showing there was a dis-ease with Elvis with the older generations. During his service, Presley's life was affected in many ways. Not long before he was transferred to West Germany, his mother Gladys died of heart attack, and this was brought on by acute hepatitis and cirrhosis. I don't know what that is. At the age of 46, while he was living in Bad Nauheim, he met his future wife Priscilla Bulow. He also became reliant on barbiturates and stimulants. And I've seen this in many interviews, that people do think that the tablet, the pill taking started back in the army. But I've also heard that in the sort of mid-50s, 53, 54, they were taking them to stay awake when they were going to different gigs, different bookings for singing. So I actually think it probably started a little bit before then. But I'm asking you guys, if you were around at that time, was it well known that people took tablets to party in the mid-50s? Did they? Yeah. So, and then it mentions here that he met Priscilla Bulow, but I'm pretty sure he was seeing Anita Wood as well. So Anita Wood was very worried that Elvis had met Priscilla. And we know the story where she was walking down the stairs and heard Vernon discussing Priscilla. And that was why they ultimately split up. So really, if Elvis hadn't have met Priscilla, things may have turned out very differently with Anita Wood. She was a lovely woman and famous in her own right. Anyway, due to this unhealthy addiction, Presley and Bulow divorced in 1973. Well, I don't know if they divorced just because of his addiction to tablets, but I'm just reading this off Google, so we'll just go with it. Partially contributed to his death at the age of 42. Well, come on, let's face it. If Elvis didn't have an addiction to so many tablets, he probably would have not passed at 42. But I accept he was very unwell, and some of these tablets he really needed. Yeah, we know that he had many medical problems, many problems. So let's have a look here. After his release from the service, Presley found a new fan base among an older group that in part to his career and rock and roll of ballads compared to his earlier rocks and roll songs. Yeah, he did. He loved his ballads and he was amazing at singing his ballads. And then they've got a thing here showing his draft. I'll show it you, but you're not going to be able to read it. But so I have never read this. I'm not going to read it all. Let's have a look if we can read. I have been informed of service obligation. And this, does it have a date on it? No, I can't see a date. Let's keep going anyway. It's too small for me to read. On January the 8th, 1956, Presley became eligible to be drafted into the military at 21. Colonel Tom Parker, Presley's manager, was well aware of his client's draft status, how it could affect his career. In the summer of 1956, Parker wrote to the Pentagon requesting that Presley be considered for special services, which would allow Presley to do only 6 weeks basic training and then resume normal life. Oh, I didn't know that. Now that is new. I didn't know that. So we're learning together, guys. Performing several times a year for the armed forces. However, Parker had no intention of allowing Presley to sign up for special services, since Presley would have received no compensation for these performances besides standard military pay. Furthermore, each performance would have been recorded and filmed for sale to the television stations worldwide. The armed forces would own the exclusive rights to these recordings, meaning all of the profits would be retained by the government. Parker was unwilling to allow anyone to enjoy Presley's talents, let alone profit from them effectively for free. Over the next 12 months, Parker led Presley to believe that it was still possible to avoid the draft completely. That's interesting. While secretly planning to allow it, in his eyes, after a year of negative publicity, this was the perfect opportunity to change the view that older Americans had of him. And we know about all this. He needed to change his image. The governments, the police were all unhappy. And I think things could have turned out very badly for Elvis if he hadn't gone into the army. I really believe that. I think he turned everything around by going into the army. When Presley was told that he would have to serve as a regular soldier, he was furious that Parker failed to get him out of the draft. Again, I didn't know this. Parker promised Presley that if he worked hard and served as a regular GI for 2 years, he would return as a bigger star than he left, which happened. And obviously we know he came out and did GI Blues and was on the Frank Sinatra show, which the whole world watched, I think. On January the 4th, 1957, Presley attended Kennedy's Veterans Hospital in Memphis for a pre-induction Army medical. On January the 8th, Presley's 22nd birthday, he was declared 1-A by the Memphis Draft Board, physically fit and likely to be drafted sometime in the next 8 months. On December the 16th, it was officially announced that Presley would be receiving his draft notice. While fans around the country were upset by the news, parents and teachers groups were ecstatic. They viewed Presley as a menace to society. And they did. Obviously, if you were a teenager and you were into rock and roll, he was a hero. So the Navy offered to create a special Elvis Presley company made up of men from the Memphis and Presley closest friends and offered him the chance to perform in Las Vegas and have his private quarters. I never knew that. I'm learning here. Did you know that? The Army offered Presley the chance to tour the world and visit Army bases to boost morale amongst soldiers and encourage other young men to enlist. I didn't know that, guys. I think he would have been great at that. Going around encouraging people to enlist. I think that would have been brilliant. Presley politely told both parties that he would consider their offers. The Pentagon, too, have been in touch to offer Presley the opportunity to join special services entertaining the troops without having to train as a regular soldier. I'll tell you what, this is all really surprising to me. This was known by many soldiers and veterans as the celebrity wimp-out. All right, okay. And Elvis wouldn't have liked that, would he? After discussing each offer with Parker, Presley decided to join as a regular soldier. In Parker's words, taking any of these deals will make millions of Americans angry. Now, would it have made Americans angry? What do you think, guys? I don't know. It depends, really. I know where Elvis is coming from. You know, wimping out. Elvis felt that it was wimping out. Elvis was quite a macho character. I totally see that he would have wanted to do proper basic training and do his military service properly, like the average normal person. I get it. Presley was originally scheduled to be inducted on January the 20th, 1958. However, due to commitments on Paramount and the filming schedule of his latest film, King Creole, which we all know is the best film Elvis ever made, Presley had to personally write to Memphis Draft Board to request a deferment. He explained to them that Paramount had already spent up to $350,000 on pre-production of the film and that many jobs were dependent on his ability to complete the film, which was due to begin on January the 13th. They granted him an extension until the middle of March. When news of the extension broke, angry letters were sent to the Memphis Draft Board explaining about the special treatment that Presley was receiving, according to Milton Bowers, head of the Draft Board, and angered by the public outcry. Presley would have automatically gotten the extension anyway if he hadn't been Elvis Presley, the superstar. Okay, very interesting. Worried that rock and roll was a passing fad, Presley wanted to make King Creole the best role he had ever acted. He knew that 2 years out of the limelight would mean hard work when he returned, and so he gave his all in that film to show the world that he had the potential to return as a serious, dramatic actor. Author Alana Nash described it as the performance that would forever define him. And it was just such a great film. I absolutely love that film. And he looks so good in it and so cool. That's the closest you'll get to him being James Dean or Marlon Brando. And I think James Dean having a car crash and dying is the reason I think Elvis got that role. Right, let's keep going. So this section is called Induction. 2 weeks after finishing King Creole, Presley reported for his induction on March the 24th, 1958, and the day dubbed Black Monday for his fans by the press. Presley was given a physical and assigned to Army serial number 533-10761 before being sworn in and made leader of his group. I didn't know that he was the leader of his group. Parker, with his permission of the army, had arranged for news crews from around the world to be on hand to report Presley's entry into the army. After a final goodbye to family and friends, Presley and his fellow U.S. Army recruits were taken by the bus to Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. There we go. Now, we all know this, and there's brilliant footage on YouTube. Quite long footage as well, very close up, very detailed, showing all of this. And I've done loads of little clips, I've done loads of short videos on Elvis, and he just looks so good in a uniform. And I would say probably Elvis at his best when it comes to his looks. Fort Hood. Right, so I think this is where he did his basic training. Presley spent 4 days at Fort Chaffee before being transferred to Fort Hood, Texas. After being assigned to the company, a 2nd Medium Tank Battalion, 37th Armor, Presley completed basic training by June. He had become a pistol sharpshooter and expressed his enjoyment at the rough and tumble of the tank's obstacles course. Now, we know that Elvis absolutely loved guns, didn't he? He absolutely loved them. To friends back home, however, he was less upbeat. In letters to a friend, Alan Fortas, Presley described his homesickness and insisted that he hated the training. I didn't know this. Eddie Fedor, another of Presley's friends, remembers that Presley would worry about his career, fearing it was all over. And yes, this has been said many times in interviews. He really did think it was all over. One of Presley's instructors, Bill Norwood, who let Presley use his phone to call home on many occasions, recalls Presley breaking down in tears during many of these phone calls. That's touching, isn't it? Now, they've got a document here. I'm just trying to see what it is, because I can't read them because the following statement has been released by Fort Hood and is provided to you for your guidance. Elvis Presley, complete Army basic individual, May the 31st, at which time he become eligible for 2 weeks leave. On June the 16th, he will begin an 8-week of advanced individual training as an armor crewman. He subsequently will complete his tank with his 24th Armored Division in a 6-week basic unit, which ends 20th of September. At that time, Presley will go to Germany as a packet replacement for the 34th Armored Division on the 7th U.S. Army. That's interesting. Do we have a date? Let's have a look here. Can't see a date. There we go, May 1958. Well, that's interesting. I'm actually learning more here than I was expecting. So let's keep going. After a short break to record new material for RCA Victor in June, Presley returned to Fort Hood to finish his tank training. He was now living off post in his own house with his mother, father, grandmother, Lamar Fike, obviously we know Lamar, and soldier who had dependent living off post were allowed to live with them. Having his family close by did cheer him up immensely, although he still spoke to friends about his fears of his career. Parker, who was often a visitor to Presley's home, would attempt to reassure his client. Parker had arranged for enough material and merchandise to be available to keep Presley's name in the public arena during his 2 years in service. Although Presley nodded along in agreement with the manager, he was not really convinced that he could return to what he had known previously. Okay, that's good. Right, so a little bit of a sad turn here, guys. Gladys Love Presley, it passes away. So this is a section on that. And we obviously know this devastated Elvis and really, I think, changed Elvis forever, Gladys passing. Right. In early August, while in Texas with her son, Gladys Presley took ill. She had recently increased her alcohol intake to cope with her son's famed army commitments, and she had also begun using diet pills to attempt to lose weight. These diet pills, guys, they're bad news. They seriously affected Lisa Marie as well, didn't they? This, coupled with a bad diet, had led to deterioration on her liver. One afternoon, after a heated argument with her husband, see, I never knew that they'd been arguing. Vernon and Gladys had been arguing. Presley arranged for her and Vernon to return to Memphis on August the 8th. The next day, Gladys' condition worsened so rapidly that she was rushed to hospital. On August the 11th, after calls from her doctor, Presley requested emergency leave to visit with his mother. After initially being turned down and threatening to go AWOL, Presley was eventually given permission to leave on August the 12th. And I know about this. I've done a video on this as well. The officer who initially denied Presley's his emergency leave was later disciplined for his actions. And so he should be. Come on, it's his mother. On August the 14th, Gladys died from cirrhosis. The officer cause of death was listed as heart attack, but the Presley refused an autopsy to verify it, although Vernon were both devastated by her death. Her funeral was held on August the 15th, and Presley collapsed several times during and after his service. So sad. His mother had always been the most important person in his life, and now he felt as though everything he had worked for had been for nothing. Presley leaves was extended by 5 days on August the 18th, and when he finally left to return to Fort Hood, he left instructions that nothing of his mother's room would be altered. So sad. Terrible. I think an advert's coming now. Horrible. Horrible. For someone who was just so close to his mother, to lose her so young. And he was in a strange land, wasn't he, in Germany? Well, he was about to go off to a strange land. And maybe this is part of the reason that him and Priscilla became close, because he had this emptiness that he was trying to fill. What do you think, guys? Let's just show you one picture, which is a very famous picture. I know that you can't really see them very well, but I'm going to show you anyway. Right. Let's keep going a bit longer. After training at Fort Hood, Presley was assigned to the 1st Medium Tank Battalion, 32nd Armour, 3rd Armour Division, at Ray Barracks, West Germany, where he served as an armor intelligence specialist. See, I didn't know that. He left Fort Hood on September the 19th, headed for Brooklyn Army Terminal in New York, where he would ship out to West Germany on September the 22nd. And it's nice to know all these timelines. After a short press conference arranged by Parker, which also involved Presley walking up and down the plank of the USS General George M. Randall 8 times for the cameras. I didn't know that. The ship set sail and Presley would spend the rest of his service overseas. During the crossing of Presley became a friend of fellow soldier Charlie Hodge. So this is where Charlie Hodge comes into the picture. And come on, we all like Charlie Hodge, didn't we? And he's known for giving Elvis the scarves, and he obviously played a bit of guitar, and he did a bit of singing as well, didn't he, Charlie? Hodge, who was enjoyed some success as an entertainer himself before being drafted, encouraged Presley to help him put together a show for the troops. Presley accepted his request, but only agreed to play piano in the background. Parker had drilled into him that there would be no public performance of any kind during his service. Hodge would become a close friend to Presley during the time in the army, and he was invited to work for him when they both were discharged. And there's many interviews with Charlie Hodge. I find him very interesting. You can tell that he genuinely loved Elvis. On October the 1st, the USS General George M. Randall arrived in West Germany, and Presley was once again offered the chance to join Special Services again. He politely refused and was instead given the task of driving the commanding officer of Company D, Captain Russell. Russell, however, did not take to the attention surrounding Presley, and he was transferred to driving duties for reconnaissance platoon sergeant Ira Jones of Company. Shortly after arriving in Germany, Presley was allowed to live off post. He and his family moved into Hilbert Park Hotel in Bad Homburg. It's all very interesting, all these names. Then the Hotel Villa Grunwald in Bad Nauheim, a town even closer to Friedberg, where Ray Barracks was located. In the meantime, Parker wrote from the United States on a nearly daily basis to Presley about how things were going back home. He acquired deals with RCA, 20th Century Fox, to make sure Presley's return to public life would go as smoothly as possible. And I bet you they were begging to sign up with the Colonel. Colonel Tom Parker was so lucky that they had to go through him. Because, come on, Elvis... There was so much money to be made from Elvis's talent and the possibility of him becoming a massive movie star. They must have been begging Colonel Tom Parker and throwing money at him. RCA agreed to release an album of Presley press conference the day he left for Germany, titled Elvis Sales. I didn't know that. The album would pay Presley 22.22 cents per sale in royalties, guaranteed up to 100,000 copies. Okay, big money in those days. 20th Century Fox had agreed upon a $200,000 fee for one Presley film, with options of a second for $250,000 and 50-50 split on profits. Wow, that's unusual. Hi James, how we going? You've caught me on. I thought I'd change the subject a bit, and I keep saying I'm going to do some army footage. So I thought I'm going to learn all about Elvis in the army, but learn with you guys so we can learn together. I just prefer it. I just finished watching your earlier show. Congratulations on your Volkswagen. And I'll tell you what, I drove that Volkswagen about 10 miles today, and it drives perfect. It took me nearly 3 weeks. I literally had to dismantle the engine. My hands are a bit monkey, but I am so relieved that it's fully working. And I can now just forget about that, repairing it and lying on the floor outside my house and just get on with my Elvis channel. So, which is what I'm doing, and I'm really enjoying it as well. I'm taking care of business from New York City. I live right up the block from the Brooklyn Army Terminal where Elvis shipped out. And this is, when you say shipped out, you mean going to Germany, don't you? And so I know there's a lot of footage of him coming back on his way back to do the Frank Sinatra coming home special. So did he head past you there as well, James? Right. Let me just get to the bit where we were. Right. Right, so yeah, 50-50 split on profits. My God, that's unheard of. Paramount as well had signed a deal to produce a number of new films after his release. What would eventually become GI Blues, which I actually really like GI Blues, was agreed upon $175,000 and a 3-picture option was included. Parker also reassured his client about the press coverage he would receive while overseas. New outlets were reporting regularly on stories, most released by Parker himself, about plans for Presley's return to entertainment. Stories of wild parties in Presley's hotel room were also making it into the papers regularly, and Parker was forced to hold a press conference to dispel these rumors. For Presley, however, being away in Germany was not all happy times. He would often write home to friends and family about being homesick, how homesick he was, how desperately he missed his mother, and how his fears about his career still clouded his mind. That says it all. He did desperately miss his mother, and I think till the day he passed. And he loved Graceland. He loved Memphis, and I think he had 3 homes by then. And he did want to come home. He did. He never wanted to be a Hollywood guy. He wanted to be a Memphis guy. Although Presley's manager had forbidden him from performing while in the army, pressure from the RCA for him to record new material led to Parker sending a microphone and a tape recorder to Germany. Presley had recorded a handful of songs before he left for overseas to cover his time away, but RCA was worried that they would run out of material before March 1960. In a letter to his client, Parker explained that recordings of the Presleys with just a piano for accompaniment, singing gospel songs would be good enough for his fans. His fans would just want to hear him sing anything, which is probably true actually. Because let's face it, he was still at the top of his game when he was in the army. Presley used a recorder to mess around with his friends and family, singing mainly gospel and current hits, but none of these recordings were sent back from Germany, released by RCA. Decades later, these recordings would be released officially on titles such as Private Presley and Home Recordings in June, with 15 days leave to enjoy. Presley and his traveled to Munich and Paris 2 days into Munich and were followed by over a week of partying in Paris, where on several occasions Presley would invite the whole chorus line of girls from 4 o'clock club back to his hotel. And I've seen the video about the chorus girls, and there's a very good black and white footage showing Elvis in Paris. Really clear. Actually, I was going to do a video on that. And then the other bit, the partying with the chorus girls. Come on, that's no surprise. And I think Charlie Hodge, there's an interview with Charlie Hodge talking about that time when they partied with those girls. And they were late to the show. I think there was a thing that happened where they nearly missed the show, the chorus girls, because they were with Elvis. So come on, he was irresistible. Come on, girls. You know that. But I will say this, I didn't know about the recordings that he did that were asked for by RCA on his tape recorder. I know it says most of it was gospel. I didn't know about that. So I wonder if that's on YouTube. I'll look that up. I wonder if I can find that. Look forward to catching the rest when I get back. Have a doctor's appointment. Have a great day. Good luck with your doctor's appointment. Right. Nice to quickly speak to you, James. All the best to you. Right. Have a great day. Media reports echoed Presley's concern about his career, but RCA producer Steve Shows and Freddie Bienstock of Hill Range had carefully prepared for his 2-year hiatus, armed with a substantial amount of unreleased material. They kept up a regular stream of successful releases. Between his induction and his discharge, Presley had 10 top 40 hits, including Wear My Ring Around Your Neck, the best-selling Hard-Headed Woman, One Night, Now and Then, Fools Such as I, A Big Hunk of Love, also managed to generate 4 albums compiling of old material during the period of most successful Elvis Golden Records 1958, which hit number 3 on the LP charts. So, all brilliant songs. Come on. I'm not going to start singing to you guys because I can't sing. Well, I can sing a little bit. Right. How much more of this? Oh, there's only a bit left. I'm going to probably read the last bits of this, and then we can carry this on tomorrow. Let's have a look. So I think it says here Amphetamines by the Sergeant. So while on maneuvers, so this will be, and I've seen Priscilla Presley refer to this, that she feels that this is when Elvis started taking the tablets. While on maneuvers, he became practically evangelical about their benefits, not only for energy, but for strength, weight loss as well. All right, okay. So I never knew that. Elvis felt that the amphetamines also helped him lose weight. And many of his friends in the outfit joined him in indulging. So they were all popping pills in the army. The army also introduced Presley to karate. All right, I never knew that. I'm learning so much today. So Elvis started his love of karate in the army. I didn't know that, which he studied seriously. And we know that he took it very serious and he was an expert. And we all know that it eventually led to hit part of his show in Vegas, which he studied seriously, including in his live performances. Fellow soldiers had attested to the Presley's wish to be seen as an able, ordinary soldier, despite his fame and to his generosity, which in his service he donated his army pay to charity. It's no surprise. Come on, we know how generous Elvis was. Purchased TV sets for the post and bought an extra set of fatigues for everyone in his outfit. I'm not sure what a fatigue is. Is it karate clothing? Don't know. You tell me, guys. In early 1959, there's a picture of his house. I'll show you it. And is this where he met Priscilla? I bet if I Googled it, it would say. In early 1959, after a combination of view complaints from other guests about the behavior of Presley's fans wanting to see him at the Grunwald Hotel and the arrival of King Saudi of Saudi Arabia. See, I didn't know that. I'm learning here, guys. So he met King Saudi of Saudi Arabia, who rather large entourage demanded the closing of the entire facility so that they could be well taken care of, particularly as his stay there was for medical reasons. Elvis and the group had left the hotel and moved to 5-bedroom hotel nearby at 14 Goethe Strasse, soon to become West Germany's most celebrated private address. Fans would congregate outside the house to see Presley as he came and went and sign put up stating that autographs would be given between 7:30. No, signs would be put up about signing autographs between 7:30 and 8 p.m. And this is the last little bit, and then I'm going to end this. So on January the 20th, 1960, Presley was promoted to sergeant. The army held a press conference on March the 1st before Presley departed from Germany. Presley was asked about his decision to serve as a regular soldier instead of part of his service club. He said, "I was in a funny position, actually, that the only way it could be, people were expecting me to mess up and goof up in one way or another. They thought I couldn't take it and so forth, and I was determined to go to any limits to prove otherwise, not only to the people who were wondering, but myself." There we are. He wanted to know he could do it for himself the proper way. He didn't want special treatment. And he always spoke very highly of his army years and was very proud that he served his country. And we know, guys, he loved his country. Now there's more bits here. There's so then we've got the bit where Vernon meets Dee Stanley. I'm not going to read all these yet. Then you've got a big section on Priscilla Buelow. I will just read a little bit of that. On September the 13th, 1959, Airman Curry Grant, who had met Priscilla a couple of months earlier, introduced him to 14-year-old Priscilla. So we've actually got an actual date, September the 13th, 1959. Buelow, during a party at Presley at home, witnesses records that Presley took an instant liking to Priscilla and the pair were practically inseparable. There we go, guys. During the rest of his time in Germany. I wonder how much longer he had. They would eventually marry. Okay. Let's have a look. Yeah. I may as well read the bit with D. Around the time Presley's father, Vernon, had been getting close to a woman called Dee Stanley, the wife of Army Sergeant Bill Stanley. Originally, Dee had written to Presley, inviting him to dinner. She had seen him live during one of his earlier performances in the 50s, and she was keen to meet a star of his stature. Presley, not interested in dinner with someone he knew was considerably older, sent his father in his place. I never knew that. So are you telling me that the reason Vernon met Dee was because Elvis stood up this person and Vernon went instead? That's so interesting. He sent his father in his place. Most biographers state that Dee was already in the process of divorcing her husband when she met Vernon, but some others claim that Vernon had gotten to know both of them together and was even asked to Bill to help him save the marriage. I'd even asked by Bill, so I'm guessing Bill was her husband, to help save the marriage. When Presley heard of the relationship between his father, Dee, he flew into a rage. In his mind, his father had no business to be setting up with another woman so soon after the death of Gladys. I've got to agree to that, guys. Elvis was right. Dee returned to the US in the summer of 1959, closely followed by Vernon, and the pair returned to West Germany together. Close friends of Presley have stated that Bill received a handsome payoff. Again, I've learned something new. Let's have a look. Dee and Vernon eventually married in 1960, with her children becoming stepbrothers to Presley. Although Presley never liked Dee, he became very close to her young children and welcomed them to his home as the brothers he never had. In later years, they were employed as bodyguards and drivers. And I've seen quite a few interviews how good Elvis was to the brothers. So I think I'm going to end it there, guys. I've learned so much, and I am really interested in Elvis's couple of years in the army, leading up to going to the army, his basic training, and then coming home, coming back to do the Frank Sinatra special and do GI Blues. I just find all of it fascinating. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I'm just reading it off my phone, but I tell you what, I love learning with you guys. I want to learn with you also, and I'll tell you why, so that we're on the same journey, because I have got a lot of things I don't know about Elvis. It's almost like I want to learn with others learning with me, because it's more enjoyable. I don't want to just sit in a room reading stuff on my own. I want to do and interact with you guys. So please comment. Please tell me anything you want to say concerning Elvis and the army years, and anything I've commented on, whether it's Vernon or Priscilla and Charlie Hodge, etc. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great day. All the best to you. I'll give you a wave, and I'll speak to you again very soon.